Let's go over some techniques, some cues, and best practices when it comes to training your push muscle groups. And that includes your chest, your shoulders, and your triceps. This way, you're able to maximize efficiency and get the most results with the least amount of time and effort. Welcome to episode 1 in our Train Less and Grow More series. If you're new here, the purpose of this channel is to share proven strategies that has not only helped me, but also over 500 men become the healthiest, the most energized, and the most confident version of themselves. Having said that, there's a million different variables that you need to take into consideration when it comes to implementing these strategies. And according to studies, approximately 90% of people who consume online content and free resources never even actually implement or execute. But for the action takers, people who are really hungry to make a change, you're going to get a lot of value from this video and all the other videos on my channel as well, so I appreciate you for being here. So statistically, as Asian men, it's actually a little bit more difficult for us to build muscle mass. On average, we have a lower baseline of testosterone. Although this isn't true for everyone, I still highly encourage training smarter and more efficiently. Before we get into it, here's some context that you need to understand. Exercise selection really depends on case by case. It's also influenced by what your priorities and goals are during this training block. Now I say that because there's a common misconception that you can just copy a workout program online and it will work. And the chances are it will, as long as you're implementing the correct progressive protocol methods. However, it might not give you the shape or the look that you're looking for. I just completed a 12-week training block that is upper chest dominant and lateral delt dominant. So in this block, the next 16 weeks, we're really focusing on bringing up my triceps and my lower chest. I'm explaining this to you so you understand the thought process behind designing a training block, which I'm more than happy to cover on a separate video. Having said that, you can save this video, steal this exact workout if you do want to develop bigger triceps and a bigger lower chest. Right now, we are in week number 5, which means we are training with 1 or 2 reps in reserve. For my clients that are relatively new to the gym, and by relatively, I mean maybe they've been training less than 3 years, I usually program and encourage them to train with 0 reps in reserve. Primarily because not many people actually know what that looks or feels like. So I rather you train close to failure, reassess your execution, and then from there, determine whether or not we actually need to train with reps in reserve or just continue to push to what feels like true mechanical failure. Before any set, especially my first set of the workout, I like to perform what I call feeler sets, which essentially consists of 1 or 2 sets that range from that 8 to 3 rep range. The purpose of feeler sets is to make sure the machine is configured correctly. It also allows for better contraction throughout the exercises and also better primes your CNS and your joints as well. Now, before you start your push day, I do highly recommend warming up your scapula as well as your rotator cuffs. I did forget to record this segment of the video, but if I can find some stock footage out there online, I'll throw it on screen right now. For our very first exercise, we have the plate loaded flat press by Hammer Strength. Absolutely love this machine, much better than your conventional bench press. The flat press is a great exercise for stimulating lower chest development. It's a much better substitute than your traditional bench press due to the stability and loading capacity that it offers. When you are performing the flat press, you want to line up the handlebars to your nipple region. You also want to avoid completely flaring your elbows out. That's going to target a lot of your front delts. So instead, slightly tuck your elbows about 45 degrees, which looks something like this. And you also want to roll your shoulders back and then down. This will help elevate your upper chest and allow you to better isolate that region. So you really want to focus on getting a deep stretch in this exercise. However, do be careful. You don't want the strain and pressure to be on your front delt. So go as low as your mobility allows before that front delt actually kicks in. When you are pressing forward, you want to visualize almost touching your elbows together. Where you should feel it the most is really that lower chest region. Up next, we have the pec fly. When it comes to setting up the machine, you want to make sure your handles are aligned with the mid-chest region, not your shoulders. Have a slight bend in your elbows and lock that bend throughout the entire movement. When you're moving through the motion, you want to lead with your elbows, your hands follow, and pretend like you're hugging the weight. Don't press it. A common mistake that I see, and what you want to avoid, is this motion here. So a lot of people tend to almost exaggerate this hugging motion. But what you want to do is maintain contact with the back support provided. Again, you want to avoid overextending and you want to keep your chest planted and facing up. You want to maintain a neutral wrist position and control every inch of the movement, maintaining a very smooth tempo. Don't bounce, don't use momentum, keeping that tension constant. Ideally, you want to be able to squeeze at the top and pause maybe for about a second or so. If you are unable to do that, you might want to reconsider the load that you're using. Of course, towards the end of the set, it's very normal to have form breakdown. When you start to notice you can't maintain full chest tension without breaking form, or when your biceps start to kick in, that's when we're nearing that beyond failure point. A couple key things you want to avoid. As I said, you don't want your shoulders to be rolling forward. You also want to avoid a completely straight elbow. Ideally have a slight bend. So again, it might look something like this, just slightly tucked in. If you're feeling it more in your delts and your arms, you're probably going too heavy, so drop the weight. Moving on, we have our current favorite exercise, the incline Smith press. Now there's a lot of controversy out there online. I don't know why a lot of people hate the incline Smith. I think that's pretty silly, if I'll be honest. The incline Smith is a great piece of equipment. It provides stability, and it's also a lot easier to rack and unrack. And on top of that, it's a lot easier to go to failure because a barbell, if you mess up, it's not going to choke you and break your neck in half. I personally feel a lot more confident, and also my shoulders feel a lot better using an incline Smith in comparison to a regular dumbbell. I think where a lot of people tend to argue is that whether or not you count the loading of the bar. What I like to do is just count the total amount of pounds or kilos that the plates have. So for example, if you have a 45 pounder and another 45 pounder, that's 90 pounds in total. I don't count the bar, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The point of tracking weight is not necessarily how heavy you lift, but how much heavier you need to lift in consecutive weeks. So it doesn't really fucking matter whether you count the bar or you don't count the bar. What's really important is you understand what those numbers mean to you. Anyways, I didn't mean to ramble. I just find that a lot of people's perspectives are very bro-ish. Like nobody cares how much you actually lift. What matters the most is how well you can lift it and how long you can continue to lift for the rest of your life. You want to avoid injuries, especially as you get older. You want to set your bench up at a 30 or 45 degree. If it's too high, it will bias your front delts more, so be careful of that. Make sure the bench is at the center of the bar. Now, when it comes to grabbing your barbell, you'll notice on the bar that there's a metal grip area, or like a grip tape. I guess you can call it that. You want a thumb space gap from where it originally starts, and I'll put a clip here so you can kind of see what that looks like. Make sure your feet is planted on the ground, but keep it relaxed to minimize drive and compensation. You want, again, your shoulders back and down to keep your chest up. Now, at the bottom of the exercise, you want the bar to sit at the very top of your chest, just underneath your clavicles. If it's any lower or any higher, adjust your seat backwards or forwards. You want your elbow angled at a 45 degree to your torso. So again, you don't want to be pressing like this. What you want it to look like is something like this. This reduces the tension on your anterior delt and will bias more of your upper chest. When you're pushing upwards, you want to imagine pushing your bicep towards your ear. This will really help with that upper chest contraction. Now pay attention to how slow and controlled I'm moving the bar. Even when it's difficult, I avoid bouncing to make sure that I'm reaching true mechanical failure. Now, can I get more reps if I were to use a little bit more momentum or speed up my reps? Yeah, most definitely, but I like to make sure that I can control the weight to avoid injury and maintain these parameters so that the following week I can maintain my form, reduce the likelihood of injury, but then also understand that I'm not getting stronger because I'm moving it faster. I'm stronger because my body's adapting and I'm probably growing more tissue. Now we're moving on to triceps, starting with the tricep overhead extension. So adjust your pulley just below hip height and maybe take 1 or 2 steps forward. This will allow you to create constant tension through the cable, and you want to face away from the stack, of course. You can slightly lean forward at the hips if that helps with stability, and you want to bring the cable over your head. It's very easy. So what I like to visualize is pulling out a katana, like a sword, from my back, like Deadpool. All you're really doing is extending your elbow like this. You don't want to overextend. That's one thing you want to be careful of. Like, see how my elbow is almost angled this way? You want to maintain a slight bend at the top, and you want to make sure, like, you need to be very intentional about this. Make sure you're flexing your tricep as hard as possible throughout the entire movement. If at any point it starts to relax, you lose the tension and you're just literally jerking off the air. So keep your upper arm fixed in this position, and your forearms should be the only thing moving throughout the entire set. On the way down, you want a deep stretch without losing tension, and I want you to pretend like you're trying to scratch your back. So by that I mean try to reach as far back as possible. You might want to move your elbow just to get a deeper and greater stretch on that tricep. Avoid swinging the cable up and maintain consistent tempo throughout the movement. Make sure you're not feeling it on your shoulders or your lats. Just really focus on your triceps. After overhead extensions, we have pushdowns. Set the pulley at the highest point of the machine. You can use a rope for this. Personally, I prefer to use this attachment. I forgot what it's called. I'm going to put it on my screen later. You can take 1 step back if you feel more comfortable and stable. Slightly lean forward and place your elbows behind your torso. You want to start your elbows at about 90 degrees with the rope or the bar near your chest height. As you're pushing down, imagine you're splitting the ropes apart in a back, down, and out motion. Pretend like your elbows are glued to your torso. They shouldn't move that much. And you want to control the return of the motion. So 2 to 3 seconds on the way up. Make sure the stack doesn't touch and maintain consistent tension throughout the entire movement. A very common mistake that a lot of people have is going too heavy in this exercise and it becomes a shrugging motion, especially when you're using a straight bar variation. So as you're pushing down, the weight's too heavy, you start to do this. You don't want your shoulders or your traps moving at all. It's just purely elbow extension and flexion. Now to wrap up this session, we have, of course, our dumbbell laterals. Typically, I like to do this on cables, but the machine was taken today, and I'm not a huge fan of changing my order of exercises. I try to keep things as consistent as possible because I find it's quite disruptive to my progression. A very common misconception that people have is, a lot of them often ask, like, I can leg press 100, 200, 300, 400 pounds, whatever it is, but I can only squat, let's just say 100 kilos, 2 plates, 245s on each side. Like, why is that? The machines, the weights on each movement, it's not the same and they're not comparable. You're comparing apples and oranges. It's not the same. And even to the same extent of, if you change the order of exercises, you're no longer comparing apples to apples because you shifted a variable. So instead of comparing your squats to your leg press, compare your freaking leg press to your freaking leg press. You also can compare your strength of leg press on exercise 1 versus your strength of leg press in exercise number 4. So order of exercises also has a huge influence on your strength. It's not a bad thing, but you just need to be careful with how you read the data and what that data actually provides to you as feedback. So to keep things simple, keep your exercises the same, do it in the same order, and don't compare different exercises with different exercises. It's even the same when it comes to pulley systems. If Gym A uses a different brand for a pulley machine and Gym B also uses a different brand for that machine, it's gonna feel completely different. So in those situations, if you can't maintain consistency in environment, just do your very best to train as close to failure as possible. Anyways, going back to lateral raises and how to do them correctly, you wanna maintain your chest up, your shoulders slightly back, you don't wanna be slouching. And when it comes to raising your dumbbells, you need to make sure it's within your scapular plane. So instead of directly away from your body, you actually want to be a little bit forward over here. So that's your scapular plane. So what that looks like on the side, that's straight forward, that's straight out, and you want to be somewhere in between. That's the best way to bias your lateral delts. You want to lead with your elbows, not your hands. You want to do this in a rotating motion, slightly tilting your elbows as you go up the movements. A phrase that I like to use is thumbs down, shoulders round. So again, you want to go outright, a little bit forward in your scapular plane, and as you're going up and down throughout the motion, I don't know if you can see here, but let me move. You want to be rotating your thumbs down, and that will make your shoulders round. Hence, thumbs down, shoulders round, right? So as you go up, kind of like pouring water in a cup, right? So that's the motion you want to be replicating. Don't just go up and down like you're freaking trying to fly. Again, up 45 degree, and then pour water out of the jar. Very common mistake that I see a lot of people make. You want to raise your arms to about shoulder height, and you want to control the tempo 2 seconds up with 3 seconds down, give or take. You don't need to be counting that, but just try to control the movement. You want to keep your wrists neutral. Don't flick them up. Maintain tension throughout the entire movement. Don't let the dumbbells touch the bottom. Don't swing either. Now, if you're feeling your traps, there's 2 probable reasons for that. Again, you're just too far out or you're going too heavy. So reduce the weight, and again, make sure you're performing it within the scapular plane. That's probably the biggest tip here. Scapular plane, thumbs down, shoulders round. So just remember those 2 things. And just a couple key things to avoid and very common mistakes that people do. I'm just going to read it line by line. Shrugging your shoulders, swinging the dumbbells, elbows. Oh, that's a very common one. You don't want to make your elbows too straight, right? So you want to have a slight bend similar to the pec fly, and you don't want too much bend on your elbows either. I see a lot of people kind of having like a 90-degree bend on their elbows and then doing this, like kind of like the chicken wing, right? You don't want to be doing that either. You don't want to be too straight. You don't want to be too tucked in. You want to have a just very, very slight bend on your elbow when performing these movements. Don't go too straight. Don't go too narrow. Somewhere in the middle. A lot of people also go too heavy on this exercise. This exercise is designed to humble you, so you're going to have to go fairly light. Just for a point of reference, I use anywhere between 7 kilos upwards of maximum 15 kilos. And, I would like to think I have pretty developed delts. I mean, that's one of my stronger muscle groups. Unless you're bigger than me, then go lift heavier. But just to kind of give you guys a reference, anything between 7 to 15, like that's what I do. And I do it between a range of 15 to 10 reps, right? So for most of you, you're watching this because you're probably less experienced than me. So, if you're lifting that heavy, I would start to question whether or not you're doing the right thing. Now that the session is complete, this is a perfect time to get some extra steps in, do your cardio. And I've created a queuing checklist for you guys that you can download in the description below just as a guide to help you out. And if you haven't already, go watch my other videos on the channel to help you get more informed. Again, it's very rare for people to actually implement the feedback and do it correctly without that extra support, that accountability. And I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video has already consumed hundreds of hours of content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And the reality is you're still in a relatively same position. And the reason for that is because what people lack is not necessarily more education, it's accountability. Full transparency, I make these videos in hopes to earn your trust. I know a lot of you guys out there have considered getting help in the past, maybe have gotten help, or might consider getting help in the future. We live in a digital era where there's so much information out there, you have no idea what's right or what's wrong. And there's also a million different creators saying either the same thing or completely different things. So it gets really overwhelming and confusing. I've been there before. But I hope my videos can point you towards the right direction and even help you make a little bit of progress on your own. So when you are tired of feeling lost, overwhelmed, confused, I'm probably the first person you'll think of. You'll be like, oh, I remember Alex, that Asian dude on YouTube. Let me go reach out to him. Maybe he can help. For those of you that don't want to waste more time and want results like these men, click the link in the description below and let's organize a diagnostic call. Don't worry, it's not a sales call. You literally can't buy anything even if you wanted to. It's just a quick 10 to 15 minute conversation to see where you are now, where you want to get to, and what you actually need to change in order for you to get there. Even if you wanted to join the program, there is a qualification process that we take all our clients through, because me, my team, we want to work with men who actually want to put in the work. You need to want to change yourself more than we want to help you make the change. Because if you don't want to make the change in the first place, we can't help. Like, no coach will, nothing will ever help. And you'll continue to watch videos like this and ultimately do nothing about it. But on top of that, we've created a really sick community, and I want to maintain the culture and work ethic that we have within that community, only containing of high caliber men hungry to grow, because chances are if you have that working attitude, you've also succeeded in other areas of your life. So it's a really cool network to be a part of. At the very least, watch my free videos here on YouTube. You'll get a ton of value and it will point you towards the right direction, maybe even help you make a bit of progress on your own. I think my light just died, but let's wrap this up. If you found this helpful, hit subscribe. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos like this in the near future, and I look forward to seeing what you guys can do with all this information. See you guys in the next video.